He's afraid of being assassinated. He's afraid of terrorists. He's also afraid, he's not afraid, he just simply doesn't have enough time to deal with the complaint of every single individual person, right? He has to eat his dinner, he has to spend time with Cherry and his family, right? He has to go on holiday, usually at the expense of some rich friend of his, you know. Nothing wrong with that, actually. I don't think there's anything wrong. Personally, I think there's nothing wrong with that at all. How could I? My parents were always, you know, helping me go on holiday and visit them and stuff like that. But anyway, you know, that aside. You know, so he has to have people. See, is this really worth me dealing with? If every single person wanted to personally complain to the Prime Minister about every single little problem that they had, would he be able to deal with that? Of course he wouldn't, because he's human. He has 24 hours in a day. He's limited. You see, but God is not limited like that. Allah, God, the Creator, who has created this whole universe, can hear the complaint of every single human being. And not only that, an incredible thing, if every single human being complained to God all at the same time, God could hear every voice of every human being, and God could give every one of them what they wanted, and that would be easy for God. Right? Now, how about the human beings? If you all start talking to me at the same time, could I understand what you're going on about? Could I? Could I? No, I can't. And the reason I can't is because I'm human. Let's think about what that means in respect to those people who pray to saints and prophets. There are even some Muslims who do this. And now we can see how people start to make others equal with Allah. So now let's say that I am praying to Saint Anthony, or some Muslim is praying to Abdul Qadir al-Jalani, or Prophet Muhammad, or Prophet Jesus, okay, or whatever, right? Sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, alayhi salam. Are you telling me that, not just me by the way, let's just say that 1 million Muslims all at the same time are asking and calling upon the Prophet Muhammad, or 1 million Catholics all at the same time are calling upon Saint Anthony? Are you telling me that Saint Anthony can hear 1 million voices all at the same time? If you're telling me that he can, then actually you are not describing a human being anymore. You are saying that he has powers that are actually divine powers. You are now beginning to make that person equal with Allah, with God. Whether it's the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wasallam, or Prophet Isa, or Saint Anthony, or Abdul Qadir al-Jalani, if you first of all put aside the argument of whether the dead can even hear the living, okay, let's put that aside. Although I believe that the dead cannot hear the living. That's why it's called barzak. Calling upon a dead person is like calling upon a brick. But let's put that aside. Let's say they can hear. Are you saying they can hear these multiple voices all at the same time? You're not really saying they're human anymore. And they could deal with all these prayers and all of these supplications? That's a divine attribute. And this is how people either, they imagine that God, Allah, is limited. See, they've given to Allah limitations, and they've given to human beings exaggerations. This is how people start to make and worship things, and and listen, if I pray to Saint Anthony, don't I hope that he's going to hear me? Don't I trust that he's going to answer my prayers? Don't I put then faith and hope and trust, and I believe that he's going to give me what I want and what I need? Or if I pray to Prophet Muhammad or Jesus or whoever it may be, doesn't it therefore become a God, an object of worship? It does. Of course it does. And the Quran deals with this. Actually, there is something more foolish about idolatry. And the basic reason why it's foolish is because of simple common sense. Any human being who spends some time thinking about it would realize this is foolishness. And again, the Quran appeals to common sense. A beautiful story is the story of Abraham. See, Prophet Abraham, he is well known for smashing idols. Bit of a radical. Can you imagine that these days? Prophet Abraham tried so hard to convince his people. You see, from a young age, he was brought up, his father's house. He was watching, his father used to make idols. So he used to see his dad get a piece of wood, chop up the piece of wood and make an idol, use the chippings to heat the fire to cook their food, yeah? And then this idol which he made, he would see his dad give it to the people, and the people would pray to it. And he realized, this is the same thing we were cooking our dinner with. Right? And now the people are worshipping it. He's brought up realizing that what is this? And then he noticed the people, they're worshipping the sun, the moon, and the stars. But he's looking, he's seeing, well, the stars are there, and then the moon comes out and outshines the stars. And then the sun comes, and that outshines everything. And then the sun sets. And why are we worshipping things that obviously are controlled by something else? It doesn't make any sense to worship them. They don't have the power. They're under the power of something else. And he realizes that these things are not true gods. They shouldn't be worshipped. Why should we worship these things that come and go and temporary? Because if they can go, that means they can let us down. The time we really need them is when they're not there. So why should I worship that? Why should I put my faith in that? Why should I put my trust in that? So one day he's determined. He says to his people, I'm going to show you. I'm going to prove to you that your worship of the idols is false. So when his people have gone, it's their festivity, and it's their religious festival, he doesn't want to participate in it, because he doesn't want to be involved in their idol worship at all. So he says to them, I'm sick. He says, I'm sick. Meaning, actually, he was sick of what they're doing. So, when they were doing this, he went into the temple and he smashed all the idols except the chief idol. He took his axe and he hung it round the neck of the chief idol. Now when the people came back, they were outraged. Who has committed this blasphemy? Who has done this to our gods? And some people said, you remember that young man Abraham? He was saying that he was going to prove our idols are false. So the king, he brings Abraham in front of the people. He says, Abraham, did you do this to our gods? So Abraham says, ask the big one. Ask him. So then they look at each other and they say to Abraham, Abraham, you know that our gods can't talk to us. He says, why do you worship something that can bring you no benefit and no harm? This idol can't even protect itself. How is it going to protect you? Isn't that common sense? Isn't that just common sense? Isn't it our common everyday experience? You who are students here in Buckinghamshire and Chiltern University, yeah? When you want to study in a university, now these days you need loans, right? You need money because you have to pay for some of it, right? Okay? Where did you go to get the money? Did you go to the guy begging on the street, sitting outside the railway station? Excuse me, mate, I need to go to university. Could I borrow a couple of £1,000? Did you do that? Did anyone do that? I don't think so. Because if this guy can't help himself, how is he going to help you? When Kuwait was invaded by Iraq, who did they appeal to for help? Bangladesh? Bangladesh with one helicopter? Nothing against Bangladesh, but if you want military aid, Bangladesh had one at the time. I remember reading, they had one helicopter, right? They couldn't cope with the floods in their own country. How would they possibly be able to supply military aid to Kuwait? And nothing against Bangladesh, nothing against the guy begging in the street. It's just common sense. You don't ask someone who can't help themselves, right? Common sense, that's all it is. Common sense. So if the idol cannot do anything for itself, how is it going to be able to do something for